The October evening bathed Manhattan in a soft, golden haze. From the penthouse on 57th Street, city lights shimmered, their glow mirrored in the glass facades of the surrounding skyscrapers. Sloane Page Evans stood by the panoramic window, a glass of champagne delicately balanced in her hand. Her slender fingers absent-mindedly rubbed the pearl necklace resting on her collarbone, a birthday gift from her father when she turned 23. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with elegance. The charity gala, held to celebrate the opening of the new wing of the Children's Hospital, had drawn the creme de la creme of New York society. Bentley Evans, Sloane's father and the hospital foundation's biggest benefactor, accepted handshakes and congratulations. His company, Evans Technologies, had tripled its profits over the past year, and his $20 million donation only solidified the family's elite status. As the only heiress to a multi-billion-dollar fortune, Sloane was no stranger to curious glances and whispered admiration. A Columbia graduate, she had deliberately chosen a quiet life, working at her father's charitable foundation, shying away from the glitz and chaos of high society. But tonight felt different. It was then that she noticed him. Across the room, at the bar, stood a tall man in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. He spoke with ease to a group of financiers, exuding charm and confidence. His dark hair was slicked back neatly, and every movement suggested he was someone used to commanding attention. Austin Ramsey, Wall Street's rising star, came her father's voice from nearby. His fund broke all the records last year. Sloane nodded slightly, but didn't take her eyes off the man. As if sensing her gaze, Austin turned. Their eyes met, and then came the smile. Effortless, confident, magnetic. It made her heart skip. Moments later, he was beside her, holding out a glass of champagne. "I hope you'll forgive my boldness," he said with a warm grin. "But I couldn't walk by without saying hello." Austin Ramsey. His voice was low and smooth, carrying a hint of a Texas accent, something rare in Manhattan circles. Sloane was intrigued. Austin introduced himself as the managing partner of Ramsey Capital, a firm focused on high-risk tech startups. 34 years old, Wharton graduate, 10 years on Wall Street. Time seemed to blur. They spoke of everything: art, travel, philanthropy. Austin was articulate, attentive, and full of genuine curiosity. His stories about growing up in a small Texas town and clawing his way to success were deeply compelling, told with a disarming humility that set him apart from the typical Manhattan elite. Bentley Evans observed their interaction from across the room with a mix of interest and concern. Austin's reputation in financial circles was spotless, yet something about him felt off. A seasoned businessman, Bentley had learned to trust his gut, but he also trusted his daughter's instincts. As the night drew to a close, Austin asked for Sloane's number. She gave it to him without a second thought. For the first time in what felt like forever, she didn't feel like the heiress to an empire, just a young woman captivated by an extraordinary man. Outside, the city sparkled below. Sloane had no idea that the man who just won her heart was already dialing a number from the back seat of his Bentley. "Everything's going according to plan," Austin said quietly. "She's exactly what we hoped, naive and trusting. This will be easy." Over the next 3 months, Sloane's life became a dream. Each morning began with fresh orchids, her favorite. Austin always seemed to know what she needed before she even voiced it. Tickets to private premieres, rare vintage books for her collection, surprise dinners at her favorite spots. He fit into her world effortlessly. At fundraisers, he charmed the foundation's trustees. In conversations with her father, he spoke with insight and clarity, his financial advice even boosting the company's profits. Slowly, Bentley Evans began to warm to him. In December, Austin gave Sloane an antique sapphire ring. "It's just like the one my great-grandmother wore," he said with a soft smile. Sloane's heart melted. The ring fit her finger as though it had been made for her. Every gesture, every word, painted Austin as the embodiment of the American dream, a self-made man, humbled despite his success. What she didn't yet realize was that the image had been carefully crafted. And behind the charm, Austin Ramsey had a much darker plan. His stories of overcoming hardship were nothing short of admirable. Sloane was captivated by the way he spoke about his childhood in a quiet Texas town, his early struggles on Wall Street, and the dreams that fueled his rise. There was a sincerity in his voice, a vulnerability that drew her in. Every tale felt like a window into the soul of a man who had truly earned everything he had. In February, Austin invited Sloane to Paris. Dinner was served in a private restaurant atop the Eiffel Tower, where city lights shimmered beneath them like stars. At the end of the meal, he presented a Cartier ring and got down on one knee. The proposal was picture perfect, and when Sloane said yes, tears streamed down her cheeks. Their engagement photos, beautiful, cinematic, and full of raw emotion, went viral almost instantly on social media. From that moment on, life became a whirlwind. Wedding preparations swept Sloane into a storm of meetings with planners and designers. She barely noticed the chaos around her, too caught up in the joy of it all. Every passing day with Austin only confirmed what her heart already knew: she had chosen right. Bentley Evans, her father, was initially cautious. Normally, he would have done a thorough background check on any potential son-in-law. But when Sloane pleaded with him, he relented. "I can see how much he loves you, princess," he said, embracing her tightly. "That's all that matters." The wedding was scheduled for early summer, and following the ceremony, the newlyweds planned to jet off to Hawaii. Austin had already booked one of the most lavish hotels along the Maui coastline. June arrived with an oppressive heat wave in New York. St. Patrick's Cathedral, the chosen venue, was transformed into a sea of white roses and orchids. Over 300 guests gathered to witness what the press would later dub the wedding of the year. In one of the cathedral's private rooms, Sloane stood in front of a full-length mirror, taking in her reflection. Her gown, designed by Vera Wong, was a masterpiece, hand-embroidered silk with a 4-meter train. A diamond tiara, a family heirloom worn by every Evans bride, sparkled in her hair. When Bentley saw his daughter in her dress, his eyes welled with tears. He remembered her as a little girl playing beneath his desk while he worked. After his wife passed, Sloane had become his entire world. And now, she was starting a new chapter. At exactly noon, the ceremony began. Sloane walked down the aisle arm in arm with her father. Guests turned in unison, awestruck by her beauty. At the altar, Austin, dressed in a sleek Tom Ford tuxedo, watched her with a warm, adoring smile that seemed nothing short of genuine. The reception took place at the plaza. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above silver serving trays, champagne flowed endlessly, and live jazz filled the grand ballroom. The newlyweds danced their first dance to La Vie en Rose, performed by a 12-piece orchestra. Few noticed the odd absence of the groom's family. When asked, Austin simply explained that his parents had died in a car accident several years earlier, and he had no other close relatives. The story only added to his mystique, an orphan who had not only survived but thrived. By the end of the night, Sloane radiated happiness. She didn't think twice about Austin stepping away from the party several times to take phone calls. Nor did she question why he insisted on signing certain legal documents just before the ceremony, while everyone was distracted and anxious. The wedding coordinator efficiently handled their departure. A flower-adorned limousine waited outside the hotel entrance. Sloane hugged her father one last time, whispering promises to call every day. Bentley stood in silence, watching the car disappear down Fifth Avenue, troubled by a gnawing feeling he couldn't explain. A private jet waited for the couple at the airport. It was a 5-hour flight to Maui, where a luxury suite at the Four Seasons awaited them. Panoramic ocean views, champagne on ice, rose petals on the bed. It was everything Sloane had dreamed of: sunsets, moonlit walks on the beach, and quiet evenings together. While she bought a few magazines in the terminal, Austin slipped away to make a call. His voice was no longer soft or romantic. It was cold, efficient. "Everything is going according to plan," he said. "The papers are signed. We start in a week." The grand suite welcomed the newlyweds in style. But behind a romantic backdrop of paradise, a carefully constructed lie had already begun to unfold. The spacious terrace, private pool, and exquisitely designed interior all radiated luxury and seclusion. It was paradise, tailor-made for a fairy tale honeymoon. Sloane couldn't get enough of the breathtaking sunsets, their soft pink hues painting the Hawaiian sky each evening. The first few days passed in a blissful blur. Leisurely breakfasts on the terrace, indulgent spa massages, long romantic walks along the shoreline. Everything felt perfect at first, but soon, Sloane began to notice subtle shifts in Austin's behavior. He became irritable, moody, and withdrawn. He often locked himself in his office with his laptop, spending hours on phone calls behind closed doors. At first, she dismissed it as work-related stress. But then came a control. Austin started dictating her every move. He insisted she cancel her surfing lessons and a planned boat trip. "It's too dangerous," he said curtly. Even a trip to the spa required his explicit approval. On the fourth day, they had their first serious argument. Sloane had transferred a large sum to a charitable organization, and when Austin discovered it, he exploded. "You have no right to move money without telling me," he shouted, his voice laced with fury. It was the first time Sloane saw a truly dark side of the man she had married. Later that evening, she overheard him at the hotel bar, speaking in a hushed tone on the phone. "No, she has no idea yet," he said. "Yes, the accounts have been accessed. I just need a little more time." When he noticed her nearby, he ended the call abruptly. The look he gave her made her flinch. Each day brought new reasons for unease. Austin claimed her phone was broken and replaced it with another, one she could only use for emergencies. He forbade her from interacting with other guests. Even her emails to her father were now screened by him before being sent. One evening, Sloane returned from a shower to find Austin hunched over documents from her private folder. "You're spending too much," he snapped. "These charity projects are a waste of money." There was something frightening in his eyes when he talked about finances. It wasn't just anger, it was obsession. Yet in fleeting moments, he could still be the man she once adored. He brought her gifts, arranged romantic dinners, whispered sweet words as if trying to erase the shadows with affection. But the constant mood swings only deepened Sloane's anxiety. On their 10th day in Maui, Sloane tried to call her father using the room's landline. As she reached for the receiver, Austin intercepted it. "I told you, no calls without me," he growled through clenched teeth. That night, for the first time, Sloane felt genuine fear. Even the hotel staff began to notice. A maid found tear-stained pillows during cleaning. The bartender remarked how Mrs. Ramsey always asked her husband's permission, even before ordering a glass of water. But no one dared to interfere. Wealthy guests were not to be questioned. That evening, everything appeared normal. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft purple glow across the room. Sloane was quietly packing. Their flight to New York was scheduled for the next morning. On the dressing table lay a letter, one she had secretly written to her father earlier that day. Austin returned from his evening jog earlier than usual. His face was pale, and his eyes burned with an unsettling intensity. When he noticed the letter, he froze. "What's that?" His voice was low and tight. Sloane tried to hide the sheet, but it was too late. The letter, soaked with fear and desperation, exposed everything. She wrote of Austin's obsession with money, his erratic behavior, her growing suspicion. It ended with a plea. "Please, take me away from here." The explosion that followed was unlike anything she had ever experienced. Austin lunged forward, grabbing her shoulders. "What is this?" he demanded. Sloane pushed back, her voice trembling but firm. For the first time, she fought him. "You lied to me. You married me for the money. Everything was fake." Her words struck deep. Without warning, he lashed out. The force of the blow sent her crashing into the marble table. Her head struck the edge with a sickening crack. As she collapsed to the floor, dark blood began to seep into the pale carpet. Austin stood motionless, staring at the growing stain. Then, like a switch, he turned methodical. For the next hour, he staged a scene. He changed her into a bathing suit, scattered makeup across the bathroom, turned on the shower. Everything crafted in haste to look like a tragic accident. At exactly 10:30 p.m., he called the hotel's accommodation service. My wife slipped in the shower, he said, sounding horrified. Please, send help quickly. When the paramedics arrived, Austin Ramsey was sobbing over her lifeless body, repeating over and over, I was only out for a minute. She just wanted a shower before bed. His performance was flawless. The police arrived 20 minutes later. Detectives P.R. Decker and C. Frost, who were on duty that night, had no idea they were about to take on one of the most high-profile cases of the year. The body of Sloane Page Evans Ramsey was transported to the morgue shortly after midnight. Her father, Bentley Evans, devastated by the tragic news, was already en route to Hawaii. Meanwhile, Austin Ramsey was carefully erasing the last traces of evidence, including a letter that could have unraveled everything. Detective Decker had spent years working in major crimes, but from the very first moment, something about this case felt off. The luxury hotel, the newlyweds, the suspiciously convenient accident. It all seemed too neat. Her instincts told her they weren't looking at a tragic mishap, but at a crime scene staged to look like one. Inside the lavish honeymoon suite, Decker began her investigation, combing through every detail with precision. Her partner, Frost, split off to interview hotel employees. In the living room, Austin played the role of the grieving husband to perfection, his sorrow measured, his voice cracking in all the right places. Something's not right here, Decker muttered as she examined the marble table in the bedroom. On the edge, barely visible, was a dark stained blood. The carpet underneath was damp, as if it had been scrubbed clean just moments earlier. Frost gathered information from Maria Hernandez, a veteran maid with 15 years of service at the hotel. She spoke in hushed tones. Mrs. Ramsey seemed scared, she said. I saw bruises on her wrists yesterday. She cried the whole time. Austin's statement soon revealed its first inconsistencies. He claimed to have gone for a run at 9 p.m., but security footage showed him returning to the hotel much earlier. Oddly, there was no hallway footage. The system had reportedly been disabled due to a technical issue. The bartender added more pieces to the puzzle. The night before, he overheard Austin on a phone call, discussing documents and urgent deadlines. He sounded like someone else, the bartender recalled. Cold, calculating. By morning, forensic experts arrived. A meticulous examination of the bathroom uncovered discrepancies that contradicted the supposed accident. The water splashes didn't align with the body's position. Shards of glass from a shattered cell phone were found scattered on the floor. Odd for a simple fall. In the dressing room, Decker found a locked safe. Austin claimed he'd forgotten the combination, but a receptionist later confirmed that he had accessed the safe twice the day before, once at 7 a.m. Then Bentley Evans arrived, barely able to stand under the weight of grief. She tried to call me yesterday, he whispered to the detectives, but the line cut off. Decker was now convinced they were facing a carefully premeditated crime. But so far, all the evidence was circumstantial. Austin had covered his tracks well, supplying just enough details to paint a picture of a heartbroken husband. By noon, the medical examiner's preliminary report came in. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head. But the injury pattern didn't match a slip in the shower. Multiple bruises of varying ages were also found on Sloane's body. We'll get him, Decker told Frost quietly. But we need to move carefully. Men like him don't leave trails. Frost nodded, flipping through witness statements. What began as a fairy tale had clearly become a nightmare. That same day, Decker ordered a deep dive into Austin Ramsey's financial background. She wanted everything: bank records, investments, debt history. Her instincts told her money was the motive. That night, the crime lab stayed open. Under ultraviolet light, faint blood traces appeared, wiped clean from the marble table. Carpet fibers revealed remnants of Sloane's torn blouse. It had been hidden in the hotel dumpster. Back at her desk, Decker scrolled through Austin's financials. The polished Wall Street image was beginning to unravel. Ramsey Capital? Nothing more than a shell. The Wall Street office? A virtual address. His bank accounts? Empty. Worse, he was drowning in multi-million-dollar debt. Take a look at this, Frost said, placing a file on the desk. It was a life insurance policy for $5 million taken out just one day before the wedding. The sole beneficiary, Austin Ramsey. Maria, the maid, recalled one last detail. On the day of the tragedy, she had seen Austin carrying some papers. He took them to the beach and burned them in a bonfire. She said it struck her as strange, burning papers on the very last day of vacation. Suspicious, the hotel's security manager recovered deleted surveillance footage. The video showed Austin returning to his room at 9:15 p.m., soaked in sweat and wearing wrinkled clothes. It was far earlier than he claimed. An hour later, he reappeared at the hotel bar, carefully masking his anxiety behind a composed facade. The bartender recalled his behavior clearly. Austin had ordered a double scotch, his hands trembling, and then spent a long time on the phone in the lobby. "I only caught part of it," the bartender said. "But I remember this. It's done. Get the paperwork ready." The forensics team soon confirmed that the blood on the marble table belonged to Sloan. Under her fingernails, they found skin particles, evidence she had fought back. Microscopic strangulation marks were also discovered on her neck. Detective P.R. Decker, now certain this was no accident, requested a full background check on Austin Ramsey. What they found dismantled his carefully built persona. His charming stories about a childhood in a small Texas town, all fabricated. The real Austin Ramsey was born and raised in suburban Chicago, with a criminal history including fraud and suspected connections to organized crime. He planned every move, Decker said, reviewing the couple's wedding photos. The dating, the proposal, the ceremony, it was all part of the con. Bank records revealed a breadcrumb trail of suspicious transfers in the weeks leading up to the wedding. Money passed through several offshore accounts, but financial analysts managed to trace it back. Just a week before meeting Sloan, Austin had received a large sum, an initial payment, perhaps. Meanwhile, a waitress at the hotel restaurant recalled a critical moment. On the day of Sloan's death, the bride had asked her to mail a letter. "She handed me an envelope and asked me to drop it in the mailbox," the waitress said. "But Mr. Ramsey stopped me in the lobby and took it." By evening, forensic investigators had uncovered a hidden compartment behind a panel in the dressing room. Inside was a folder filled with damning evidence: fake passports, offshore bank statements, and handwritten drafts of letters. It was clear Austin had been preparing his escape. Decker spread the findings across the evidence table. The case was beginning to take shape, but one piece was still missing. Who was behind it all? It was becoming evident that Austin was not acting alone. Someone had orchestrated this elaborate crime, and Austin was the executor. Later, Sloan's original cell phone was found, hidden under a dresser. The last unsent text message, typed in desperation, read, "Dad, I'm scared. He's not who he says he is." The message never went through. The phone had been blocked before it could be sent. The Hawaii Police Department's financial crimes team worked around the clock. As they dug deeper, Austin's life unfolded like a Russian nesting doll, each layer revealing a deeper level of deceit. His criminal trail stretched back to the early 2000s, small-time scams, forged documents, and marriage fraud. He changed names and moved cities, leaving behind a trail of broken lives and stolen fortunes. But this was his first suspected murder. "Take a look at this," Decker said, handing Frost a folder of financial records. "He's racked up over $15 million in debt in the past 3 years, through stock market speculation, gambling, shady investments. He's trapped." In Austin's laptop, detectives uncovered an elaborate blueprint, the step-by-step plan of a predator. Phase 1. Infiltrate New York high society with a fake resume and fabricated business success. Phase 2. Find the ideal target. Sloan was perfect, young, innocent, and sole heiress to a vast fortune. The prenup, which initially seemed routine, turned out to be a masterstroke of manipulation. Hidden within the legal language were clauses granting Austin limited control over Sloan's assets in the event of her death. Even more chilling, he stood to gain a significant stake in Evans Technologies and a $5 million insurance payout if she died accidentally within the first year of marriage. He had it all mapped out, the financial analyst concluded. Surveillance revealed another critical detail. In the week before the wedding, Austin had met multiple times with a man whose identity was initially unknown. Cameras spotted them dining at upscale restaurants across Manhattan. Investigators later identified the man as a representative of one of Austin's creditors. On Austin's phone, they found encrypted messages. "You have 1 month, read one, or your debt will be paid in blood." Austin was cornered, pressured by ruthless lenders, and rapidly running out of time. And then, another chilling discovery. While reviewing additional hotel footage, detectives noticed Austin meeting a second man the day before the murder. The resemblance was uncanny. This man looked almost identical to his earlier Manhattan contact. The net was tightening. They spoke on the beach for nearly an hour, just out of microphone range. Bentley Evans, after reviewing the investigation in full, was devastated. His voice trembled with regret as he whispered over and over, "I should have looked into it more thoroughly. My little girl tried to warn me, and I didn't hear her." Back at the hotel, detectives uncovered another piece of evidence in a room safe. A draft of Sloane's will, allegedly signed the day before her death. The handwriting was a near-perfect forgery, but experts noted subtle inconsistencies. "It was the perfect scam," Decker said grimly, staring at the evidence board. Austin had orchestrated every detail: insurance money, company shares, control over Sloane's assets. The creditors would be satisfied, and he would walk away clean. Frost added the final piece to the puzzle, a printout of Austin's bank transactions. Just a day before the murder, he had booked 2 one-way tickets to South America, destination, a country with no extradition treaty. "The perfect place for a new beginning," Frost muttered. Now the detectives had everything: motive, evidence, and witnesses. The challenge was getting Austin to confess. Decker knew men like him only cracked when the walls closed incompletely. At the Maui Police Department, the interrogation room felt like a pressure cooker: glass walls, stale air, and silence heavy enough to choke. Austin Ramsey sat across from Decker, still playing the grieving husband, but his eyes gave him away. They were clouded with fear, darting toward the door, toward the clock. Anywhere but the evidence in front of him. "Let's go over your version of events again," Decker said, spreading photographs across the table. "You say you returned from a run at 10 p.m. and found your wife in the bathtub." She laid down the first card, a surveillance photo showing Austin entering the hotel much earlier than he claimed. His hand trembled slightly. "Maybe I got the time wrong," he said, forcing a calm tone. "It's all a blur." "I see," Decker replied, placing another document on the table. "And how do you explain this?" It was a high-resolution image of the blood-stained marble table, alongside lab results confirming the blood was Sloane's. Austin's face drained of color. "It's not what it looks like," he mumbled. Just then, Frost entered with a new folder. "Interesting story," he said, taking a seat. "We had a chat with some of your old business partners in Chicago. They had plenty to say." Inside the folder were photos of meetings with shady creditors, fraudulent account statements, and forged business documents. The carefully spun narrative of Austin Ramsey began to unravel like a cheap suit. $5 million in life insurance, Decker added, plus a stake in Evans Technologies. Not a bad payday for a man drowning in $15 million of debt. Austin remained silent, sweat beading on his forehead. The detectives continued, each fact another nail in the coffin: Sloane's missing letter, the stage crime scene, signs of struggle in the room. Frost opened another folder. "The maid saw bruises. The bartender overheard your call. The waitress remembered the letter you intercepted. We have witnesses." Austin finally broke. "You don't understand," he said hoarsely. "They were going to kill me. I had no choice. I had to get that money." "Who?" Decker pressed, leaning forward. And the story poured out like a broken dam. Debts to a crime syndicate, threats, a deadline, a desperate plan. He detailed how he had chosen Sloane, charmed her, studied her routines, built his alibi. "I didn't mean to kill her," he muttered. "She found the documents. She started asking questions. She wrote a letter to her father." His voice cracked. "I hit her. She fell, hit the table. I panicked." The confession took nearly 2 hours. Every detail of the plot came spilling out, cold, calculated, and terrifyingly thorough. In the next room, Bentley Evans listened through a microphone. Tears streamed down his face, grief for his daughter, and fury at himself for having trusted a con man in a tuxedo. When officers read "Austin is rights," he looked like a man aged a decade in a night. The mask of the slick financier had finally slipped, revealing the predator beneath. "Take him away," Decker said. The click of the handcuffs echoed through the hallway. A story that had begun with a glamorous Manhattan romance ended in a Hawaiian interrogation room. As Frost gathered the paperwork, he glanced at his partner. "Good work," he said. Decker nodded, watching as Austin was led away. Another case closed, but this time there was no satisfaction. Only a deep, aching bitterness at how easily love had been weaponized and how quickly trust had turned to tragedy. The Honolulu District Court was packed. The trial of Austin Ramsey had gripped the nation. The chilling tale of a honeymoon murder that had shaken America to its core. The prosecution laid out its case with surgical precision. Financial records, expert analysis, and emotional witness testimony painted a grim portrait of greed and betrayal. Piece by piece, the dark story unfolded before the jury. The defense attempted to cast Austin as a desperate man, pressured by debt, threatened by dangerous creditors, acting out of fear for his life. But the jury remained unmoved, especially after the prosecutor read aloud Sloane's final letter. "My father always told me to trust people," she wrote. "But now I'm afraid. Austin is not who he says he is. He's only interested in money. Please help me get out of here." Bentley Evans took the stand as the prosecution's final witness. He spoke of how Austin had carefully embedded himself into their lives, earning their trust, manipulating emotions. Many jurors looked away as Bentley described the moment he realized it had all been a lie. The jury deliberated for just 3 hours. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, fraud, and forgery. The judge delivered the sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. Austin stood still, his face blank. Only as he was let out of the courtroom did he glance at Bentley Evans and whisper, "I'm sorry." After the trial, Bentley established a foundation in Sloane's name to support victims of domestic abuse. "My daughter always wanted to help people," he said at the launch of the Sloane Page Evans Foundation. "Now her name will be tied to hope, not tragedy." Detectives Decker and Frost attended the ceremony. The case had left a deep impression on both of them. "You know what scares me most?" Decker said to her partner. "How easily we believe beautiful lies." "Sloane was smart," Frost replied. "She came from a good family. But even smart people fall for professional manipulators. Love makes us blind. And men like Ramsey, they know that." A year after the conviction, a letter arrived at the precinct from prison. It was from Austin. He wrote that he now understood the full weight of his crime, that every night he saw Sloane's eyes in the moment she realized the truth. Decker folded the letter and placed it in the case file. Whether his remorse was genuine or not no longer mattered. Nothing could bring Sloane back. Nothing could comfort the father who had lost his only child. In the archives of the Maui Police Department, file 2025 to 137 was quietly stored among the others. A story of love turned fatal, betrayal hidden beneath charm, and a crime so precisely executed it almost worked. But for the detectives, it wasn't just another case closed. It was a lifelong reminder. Never be fooled by the surface. Pay attention to the signs too often ignored by hearts blinded by love. And somewhere in New York City, the Sloane Page Evans Foundation continued its mission, helping those trapped in toxic relationships. Sloane's story became a warning. Sometimes, Prince Charming is a predator in disguise. Sometimes, a fairy tale ends in bloodshed. Yet, even in this darkest of stories, a glimmer of hope remained. Hope that her tragedy would save others. Hope that someone, somewhere, would see the signs in time and survive.